Hey, John here with Prime Studios Photography, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Fuji GA645Zi medium format film camera. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more film photography videos. If you're interested in getting your own Fuji GA645Zi or medium format film, you can find links to those down below. This camera has a lot of features, so I've also put timestamps in the description below so you can jump around to whichever section you'd like. The battery compartment is located at the bottom of the handle, which can be opened with a coin. This camera takes two CR123 batteries, which will last for about 1600 shots with no flash, and about 450 shots with half of them using flash. The rear LCD display will show the status of the battery as either good, needs replacement, or it will blink and lock the shutter, indicating the batteries must be replaced. Keep in mind that the date and time will be reset every time you replace the batteries. The primary way of manipulating the camera's settings is the LCD screen on the back. I apologize that my camera's LCD is not fully displaying everything due to its age, but it's still usable. To set the date and time, first turn the camera on by pushing down on the lock release and setting the dial to P. Hold down the data button and then push the AF/M button and you will see the year blinking. Set the year by rotating the up-down dial and then press the AF/M button to go to the month and repeat the procedure. Repeat this same procedure for day, hour, and minute, pressing the AF/M button one last time to return to the default screen showing the chosen ISO. This camera has the ability to print data about each photo directly onto the film, including the date and exposure information. You can cycle through which type of information will be printed by holding down the data button and rotating the up-down dial through 5 different choices. No printing, year, month, day, day, hour, minute, or year, month, day, and then exposure information, which will blink alternately. There is also a lens cap sensor located on the front of the lens. The lens cap sensor can be turned off or on by moving the zoom lever up and turning the mode dial from off to ISO. You will see off C or on C on the LCD screen for about 5 seconds, indicating that the sensor has been turned on or off. Another feature of this camera is its notification beep. It will beep once whenever the shutter is activated, or 3 times when you reach the last photo on a roll of film. You can toggle this beep on or off by holding down the self-timer button while moving the dial from off to ISO, with either off B or on B being displayed on the LCD screen. You can also access the camera's approximate lifetime shutter count by holding down the exposure compensation button while turning the mode dial from off to ISO. This will display the lifetime shutter count by hundreds. Even though my LCD screen is damaged, it says 0600, which means a lifetime shutter count between 600 and 700. To load the film, open the back of the camera by pulling out and twisting the tab on the right side of the camera. Before loading the film, check to make sure the pressure plate setting is correct for your film, either 120 or 220, by pressing the small red button on the inside of the door. You will be able to see the change on the LCD screen. It's likely you'll be using 120 film, which gives you 16 exposures, as 220 film, which gives you 32 exposures, is no longer produced. To continue loading the film, press the 2 small red buttons on each side to release the spool locks. Move the previous roll's spool from the left side to the right side of the camera and lock it in place by pushing in the button on the bottom. Unwrap your roll of film and place it into the left side of the camera and lock it in place by pushing the other button on the bottom in. Pull the paper tab over to the right and insert it into the left side spool. Modern medium format film will often have a hole in the tab that will latch onto a holder in the middle of the take-up spool. Once the tab is inserted, rotate the up-down dial to advance the film forward. Make sure to go one click at a time so you don't pull the film forward too quickly. Align the start arrows with the first red button and close the back of the camera until you hear it click. In order to complete the loading, you will have to turn the camera on from the off position and you will hear the film advance to the first photo. Set your ISO by moving the dial to the ISO position and use the up-down dial to select the appropriate sensitivity for your film. In addition to setting the ISO manually, you can also continue to turn the dial all the way down to 25 ISO, and then after that, it will switch to auto. There are some films, like Fujifilm 120, that have a barcode where the camera can automatically read the ISO of the film and set it for you. This is also where you can choose to push or pull the exposure by setting the ISO to a higher or lower speed setting than the film actually has. If you like, you can cut off a piece of a film box and place it in the film reminder window in order to remember what kind of film you have in the camera if you put it down for a while. The camera also features a mid-roll winding button on the bottom that when pressed will wind the film up on the take-up spool regardless of how many photos have been taken. Unlike 35mm film, it's not being rewound, and so it can't be put back into the camera so you can finish the rest of the roll. You can engage the autofocus by holding the shutter button down halfway. A focus lock is indicated by the top part of the framing guide in the viewfinder being illuminated. This also shows you what your framing should be depending on zoom level and the distance to the subject. If the camera cannot achieve a focus lock, then the framing guide will not appear and the distance indicator will flash. The camera uses a single autofocus point in the middle of the frame so you can focus on what you'd like, then continue to hold the shutter button halfway down and reframe the photo if you wish. The autofocus system primarily uses infrared beams of light from here, with phase detection being used for greater distances, which is located here. Because of the infrared autofocus system, in my testing I was easily able to focus on subjects in total darkness. You can switch to manual focus by holding down the AFM button and rotating the up-down dial. Here it shows your focusing distance in meters. To switch it back to autofocus, you just go back the other way until it says AF. You can change the distance measurements from meters to feet by holding down the AF/M button while turning the mode dial to ISO. This will only change the distance measurement on the LCD screen in manual focus and not in the viewfinder. Simply repeat the procedure in order to go back to meters. The viewfinder has a diopter adjustment wheel on the top to make the view clearer. To adjust the diopter properly, first focus on a subject, then turn the dial until the subject in the viewfinder appears clear. This camera uses center-weighted metering, which means the light exposure reading is taken from the center of the frame in order to calculate the settings for the photo. Unlike most medium format cameras, this one has a built-in power zoom lens that can be adjusted with the toggle switch on the back. This lens ranges from 55mm to 90mm and a maximum f-stop of f4.5 to 6.9. The 35mm equivalent to this is approximately 34mm to 56mm, f2.8 to 4.3. The lens also has a filter thread that can accept 52mm filters. Moving the mode dial to P will put the camera in program mode, or fully automatic, where the camera chooses the aperture and shutter speed. Lightly tapping on the shutter button will wake the camera up and keep the light meter active for about 5 seconds if nothing else is done. Moving the mode dial to A will put the camera in aperture priority mode, where you choose the aperture and the camera chooses the shutter speed. The aperture can be adjusted by rotating the up-down dial with your thumb. Any conditions that result in an under or over exposure will cause the numbers on the left side in the viewfinder to blink, with an arrow indicating if it is receiving too much or too little light. Moving the mode dial into AS also puts it in aperture priority mode with one difference. If the flash is being used in this mode, it will not limit it to a shutter speed of 1/45th of a second like the A mode will. This will allow you to use longer shutter speeds in conjunction with the flash, also known as dragging the shutter. In the P, A, and AS modes, you can use the exposure compensation button to change how the light meter reads the light coming into the camera. Just hold down the exposure compensation button while turning the up-down dial to tell the meter to read a little brighter or darker. This will be displayed on the LCD screen. Exposure compensation cannot be used in manual mode. Moving the mode dial to M will put the camera in full manual mode, where you choose both the aperture and the shutter speed. In this mode, the aperture can be changed by rotating the up-down dial, and the shutter speed can be changed by holding down the exposure compensation button while moving that same dial. The light meter tells you whether you are over or underexposed by using the up or down arrow inside the viewfinder. Both arrows are illuminated when the settings will give a correct exposure. The slowest shutter speed the camera can do on its own is 2 seconds. After that is the bulb mode, which will keep the shutter open for as long as you like and will be indicated on the LCD screen, as well as inside the viewfinder. The shutter button must remain pressed down in bulb mode to keep the shutter open, so I recommend using a remote shutter cord with a lock to utilize this function. Keeping the shutter open in bulb mode will not drain the battery. A plunger-style remote shutter cord can be attached to the camera in the upper right. You can turn on the self-timer by pressing the self-timer button. The timer symbol should show up in the LCD screen, but doesn't on mine due to age. This will cause the camera to wait 10 seconds before it takes a photo. The red light on the front will remain solid for 7 seconds and then blink for 3 seconds. Your camera may or may not come with a custom lens hood, and it can be attached like pretty much all lens hoods into a locked position. The lens hood itself will not interfere with any filter attached to the lens. You can activate the on-camera flash by pressing the flash button in the upper left. A blinking flash symbol in the viewfinder means the capacitor is charging and you will not be able to take a photo until the flash symbol is solid. The on-camera flash exposure is always automatic and is based upon the ISO and aperture used. The built-in flash does have a limited amount of power, so you need to be careful to not choose too small of an aperture opening when using a low ISO film. In program mode, the flash may or may not fire, depending on if the camera thinks it needs more light or not. In aperture priority mode, the flash will always fire, and the camera will never use a shutter speed slower than 1/45th of a second. In aperture priority S mode, the flash will always fire and the shutter speed will not be limited at all. In manual mode, the flash will always fire with the shutter speed and aperture you have set, as well as adjust the power of the flash according to the aperture and ISO used. The camera also comes equipped with a single pin hot shoe and a PC sync port for off-camera flash. When using these, it's recommended you shoot it in manual mode when using a manual external flash, as the shutter limiting functions will not work like they do with the built-in flash. When you reach the last photo on your roll of film, the camera will beep 3 times to let you know. Once you take the last picture on your roll of film, it will wind it all the way onto the right take-up spool. Once it's done, the LCD screen will read E. Once you're done taking all the pictures on your roll of film, you can unload it the same way you loaded it. Open the back of the camera, push the red release button to release the spool, and take it out carefully, making sure to not unravel it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video has helped you. If you have any questions, please let me know down in the comments below. Thanks.